just sort of talk about things that happened. He said, oh, you remember that time when... And by the way, my diaries have just come out, 94 to 97, prelude to power. Only one person actually came here and got me to sign it. So if there's any spare trophies tonight, Terry's going to get it. The rest of you can buy it tomorrow. Anyway, we're sitting there, and I was reminded of Tony, because the thing about Tony Blair, he's got a lot of strengths as a leader, but one of them was he always surrounded himself with people who would challenge him. And one of the things we used to do is to try to make sure he kept his feet on the ground, because it's quite a weird thing being Prime Minister. Just think about it, right? I mean, there's old David Cameron, a few years ago, and none of you had ever heard of him, right? Now he's the Prime Minister, he's going to be well known right around the world. He can't just go out for a walk down the street without loads of security. Sniffer dogs have to go ahead and sort of, you know, smell your leg to see if you've got any Semtex and all that sort of stuff. And so, you know, it's just weird. Added to which, you go from being somebody who's kind of, you know, well, in Tony's case, a lawyer, and Cameron's case, a spin doctor, I don't know where I went wrong. And, you know, they're then suddenly Prime Minister. They've been described as, you know, one of the most powerful people in the world, and it's not a very normal existence. Added to which, everybody thinks they know you, they've got an opinion on you. So Tony used to say his life as Prime Minister was a conspiracy against normality, and he used to look to us to try to keep him normal. And one of the things we did was just to remind him of his fallibility quite a lot. And so I'll tell you a story we used to tell. Whenever he was getting a bit above himself, because it does happen, right? It happens to all of them. And they're getting a bit there, and they're sort of floating off the ground. So we used to remind him in meetings, you just cough a word under your breath. And one of my favourite ones was Holland. He used to go, Holland. And he'd go, Holland, which, as you know, is a country, population 20-odd million, so I don't know, quite a good football team, might win the World Cup. Anyway, the reason I mentioned Holland is because once Tony went there as part of Labour's Treasury team, and he was in a queue for the buffet at lunchtime, and he's standing next to this quite attractive middle-aged woman, right? Now, I don't know if any of you, the ladies in the room, have ever met Tony Blair, but he's got a little bit of an eye. And so he's looking at this very attractive middle-aged woman, she's looking at him, but because he went to public school, he didn't quite know how to make the first move. So he says, eventually, she says, who are you, what do you do? And he says, my name's Tony Blair, I'm a member of Parliament from England. And he says, who are you and what do you do? And she says, my name's Beatrix, I'm the Queen. So if ever you bump into him, just say to him, who's the Queen of Holland, right? And you'll see that tan just go a little bit pale. Now, the thing about tonight, I never used to really go for awards ceremony. I quite like them now. I'll give you two reasons. Well, I'll give you one reason why I like them, and I'll give you another reason why I think yours is very important. The reason why I like awards is because we live in a culture of negativity. I'll give you a little factoid to lock away inside your head as you read the newspapers and flip through them and watch the telly and so forth. The positive to negative ratio in the British press in 1974 was 3 positive to 1 negative. 2003 it was 1 positive to 18 negative. Right? That's a cultural shift. And what it's basically saying, as the England players are going to find out in the morning, is that news is only news if it's bad news. And if you're in an organisation, any organisation, and it doesn't have to be an organisation that's constantly in the public eye, like the government, or Downing Street, or the Foreign Office, or the Ministry of Defence, and it doesn't even have to be one of the big companies like BP, or you know, the Royal Mail, or whatever. It doesn't have to be like any company and any individual can get suddenly defined in the public eye. And it is almost always negative. And it's just worth bearing that in mind. And events like this are just an occasion for people to remind themselves that actually the vast bulk of people in this country are perfectly good, decent people who work and who try to, you know, do their best, and they work pretty well, and they get on with what they do, and the country's full of incredibly talented people. And you just don't hear about it. I had a friend, I mentioned the time at the Daily Mirror, I had a friend at the Daily Mirror called Jill Palmer, she was the health correspondent. Her job was to write stories about the National Health Service. So her staple diet was miracle babies, it was ambulance drivers digging people out of car accidents, it was new drugs coming on the market, It was doctors doing operations that took 3 days and would do little graphics of how they did it and all the rest of it. She was called in a few years ago by the editor, you may have heard of him, Piers, and big star. And she was told, "No, I'm really sorry about this, Jill, but there's just not this there's no market for these positive NHS stories." Now, that again, I'm not criticising, it's just the way that the media has gone. So actually, standing up every now and then and just saying, you, an organisation, an institute, call yourselves what you will, actually, we do a lot of good work and we're going to pat ourselves on the back and we're going to honour the people who do it well. I think that's a very, very good thing to do. So I'm all in favour of these awards. I think they're a great thing. It's not just have a night out and, you know, have a few drinks and fall over and wake up in the wrong bedroom. You know, you can do all that. You can do all that if you have to, but actually, it's about celebrating your success, and that's why I think it's important that you do it. And the point where I think what you're doing is so important is because, again, it partly relates to that point. There was like Downing Street, okay, quite a small place in one way, not a massive organisation. Sometimes you'd be so busy dealing with the latest crisis, frenzy, call it what you will, that you forget, actually, nearly all of the people around you, including people right outside your door, secretaries and, you know, the guys working in admin and all the rest of it, they're getting all their information about what we were doing, not from us, but through the press, who were distorting everything through a prism that was negativising. And that meant, actually, they were becoming less effective. They were becoming less engaged in what we were doing. And of course, you're so busy trying to deal with the really kind of big stuff of government and all the rest of it, you overlook all that. And like, you just think about BP at the moment, okay, they're having a pretty bad time, you may have noticed.